We are officially through 12 weeks of the NFL season, and the playoffs are just a handful of weeks away. So in today's video, I want to go over every single contender heading into the 2025 NFL postseason. Hit the like and subscribe button if you guys do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So in order to categorize each contender, I did 3 different categories. The first category is going to be our dark horse category. These are teams that are obviously very good, but they're not like the upper echelon favorites to potentially win it all. Then you have the still in the mix category. These are teams that are kind of like right there and they could win the Super Bowl, but they would not be my favorites. And then that gives us the third category, that one being the favorites. These are the teams that if I were to put money on the line for a team to win the championship, it would be on one of these teams. With that said, let us begin with our first dark horse team, and it is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. So this is the most dark of dark horse contenders I have on today's list, and that's mainly due to the fact that they are just so battered with injuries. They are starting to get a little bit more healthy on the offensive end, which does make this offense potentially have the caliber of a Super Bowl caliber offense, but the defense is really scary. Now, I love their coaching staff. I think they've done an incredible job to start off this year. They're 7-4. They're firmly in the mix to still make the playoffs, and they're even potentially in there to win the division if a couple of things go their way. The big issue is just going to be the simple fact that they don't have the defensive talent they used to have when they were making those deep championship runs. Like no more Fred Warner because of injury. Nick Bosa's out for the year. You're relying on a very young unit with a lot of different personnel that haven't been on the team for the past couple of years. So it's going to be quite difficult. But with the offense ascending and with the coaching staff, I still have some faith in this team. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens are an interesting case because a few weeks ago, I didn't even have them in my contenders video. I did one, I think, after week 7, and Baltimore Ravens were not even on the list because at that point, they were way below 500. They were playing terrible football. Lamar Jackson, I believe, was hurt. Everything was really bad for the Ravens, but they're now on a 5-game winning streak. And even though I don't think this team is fully clicking yet, they do have a bit of a runway to still kind of get to that point where they are playing better football. They have a really good chance of winning the division, which is crazy to think about, especially with their 1-5 start to the season. But they're starting to play better defensively, and if this offense can just start to stack it up and play better and better and better, then the Ravens could return to the form that we thought they were going to be heading into the year. Again, heading into the season, I thought the Baltimore Ravens were one of the favorites to win it all, and then they got injured, they were terrible, and a bad start to the year. Now they're healthy. Now they're playing a lot better. Can they reach that mountaintop? I don't think so, hence why they're in my dark horse, but they still have the chance to get there, so they're still in the video. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Houston Texans. So the Texans are probably not going to win the division. They're not too far away from it. They're only down 2 games to the Indianapolis Colts and 1 game from the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I do think it's a pretty tall task to assume the Texans are going to be able to win out and the Colts are going to lose 2 more and the Jaguars are going to lose games. The Texans still have a chance, but ultimately it does feel like another team will win the division. Still, though, I do believe the Texans have a great chance of, going on a nice run to end the season and still making it into the playoffs. This is one of the best defenses in football. I wouldn't say they're the best, but they are probably the second best in the NFL, or they might just be the best. That's how great they're playing. They can score defensively. They can create turnovers. They can get after the quarterback. They just sacked Josh Allen like 8 times and made his life miserable. So they got the defensive personnel to make a deep run. The question will be, what does the offense look like when CJ Stroud is back there? Because it does feel like this offense is finding its way. It's starting to play a whole lot better than what it was to start the year off. It feels like the play calling's gotten a lot better. The run game's gotten a bit more going. They're starting to use their run guys a whole lot more. Higgins is more involved. Woody Marks is more involved. Jalen Knowles more involved. Let's see what this offense looks like. They do have a couple of tough challenges up ahead, which could hinder their chances of making the playoffs. But if they do get in with this defense, I think it at least gives them a chance. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers having any sort of chance of making that deep playoff run, it is going to 100% come down to the health of this team. Mike Evans is out, although I am hearing he might be back for week 14, so that is promising. We're also hearing that Bucky Irving is going to be back probably next week, which is very positive. But now they're having the injury to Baker Mayfield. And of course, if Baker is to miss extended time, then that would not be good for this team. Because after their super hot start, they're now on a 3-game losing streak. And now they're tied in first place with the division with the Carolina Panthers. Now, the good news for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is that they do have 2 future matchups with the Panthers, and I don't think the Panthers are just going to run away with this division. So if Baker has to miss the next 2 or 3 games, can they get healthy in time for those games versus Carolina, win both those games, win a few more games, and then ultimately win the division, and then get into the playoffs with potentially being the 4th seed and having a chance to make that playoff run? I think it's totally possible for this team. But if Baker's out for potentially the rest of the year, then obviously, throw this whole section of the video out. But we don't know the news right now, and I'm not sure when we're going to know the news. But the injury didn't look great. But assuming Baker can continue to play, assuming they do get healthy, they have the offensive personnel to be one of the better units out there. And defensively, I feel like they have the pieces. They're definitely not a great defense, like a linebacker, pass rush. Like, they need more of those sort of guys, more difference makers defensively. But they have some guys that can play. And I think the last night, the game versus the LA Rams, I don't think it was a great indicator as to who this Buccaneers team is, because I do think they're better than what they showed. But they have to get healthy, because if they're not healthy, then they have no chance. But if they can get healthy, I think they will have at least a fighter's chance. Next up, let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. So in a lot of ways, the same things I said about the Buccaneers also kind of apply to the Chargers. The Chargers are like legitimately dark horse contenders. And it's a shame, because had this team been fully healthy, I do believe that the Chargers would be actually in the conversation to make that playoff run. Like, they are a really talented football team, but they're just so banged up right now on the offensive side of things that it's just tough to fathom and really see this team making that deep playoff run. They're 7-4. They have a bit of a tough schedule down the stretch of the season. I still think they're going to ultimately make the playoffs, and they have a quarterback named Justin Herbert who's playing at a very high level right now. And defensively, I think they have what it takes to be a solid unit that can, help this team win a playoff game or 2. But with the offensive line being as bad and banged up as it is, with the running game not being what it usually is too, it is very difficult to see the Chargers actually having a chance to make a run at this thing, which is a shame, because again, I think they're extremely talented. But with Herbert, they're always going to have a chance. So that's kind of what they're going to hang their hat on. But now we enter into the still in the mix category. And by the way, I have 5 teams in each category. So let's talk about the next 5. And we are going to begin with the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are a football team that I just don't know what to do with. One week they look terrible. The next week they look great. They're just a really bizarre football team. I still think this team has issues on the offensive end. Like, they haven't been as productive as I thought they were going to be. Now, Josh Jacobs did miss this past week, and maybe that's why the offense didn't look super potent. But I feel like even when they had Josh Jacobs, this offense just wasn't fully clicking the way that I thought it was going to. But I think the defense is really freaking good. Like, I legitimately think this is one of the better defenses out there. And as long as you have that top end defense with an offense that can score points, you're going to have a chance with any matchup. And when you look at the NFC, it is fairly open. Like, I think there's some really good teams on the top, and I wouldn't say the Packers would beat those teams, but I think they would have a chance, because they can be explosive on offense, they can be methodical on offense, and defensively they have some difference makers like McKinney and Micah Parsons that can play a big role on the defense. So I think the Packers have the playmakers. I think they have the star players and the coaching staff. It just comes down to, like, will they find the consistency, and will they be able to put it together in a playoff run? Because we saw early in the year they looked great, then they started losing, and then they started winning, and it's just kind of been a roller coaster of a season for them. Can they find that consistency heading into the playoffs? Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about their division rival, the Detroit Lions. So the Lions and the Packers play, I believe, on Thanksgiving, so this is going to be a really fun matchup while we're eating the turkey and the stuffing, or maybe you're a ham person. I'm more of a turkey guy. Don't hate me. I just love me some turkey. But we will be watching this game, and it's going to be very, very exciting. 2 potentially top-of-the-line NFC teams that, this game could have division stakes on it. I do know the Bears are number 1 in the division, but how much longer are they going to hold that? I don't think it'll be much longer, because their schedule does start to toughen up here in a few weeks. But the Packers and the Lions are firmly there, and they are right in the hunt there to potentially take over that number 1 seed. So big game on Thanksgiving. With that said, the Lions have just kind of been up and down, kind of like the Packers. One week they look incredible. The offense is scoring 50 points. They're running up the yardage, and Jameer's playing great, and Amon-Ra's playing great, and Jameson makes a big play. And then other weeks it's just like they just are walking through mud, where they're getting like 20 points and the defense is just playing mediocre and they lose the game. Like, It's just been that kind of year for this team where they haven't been able to find that firm consistency. And some of that is due to the injuries on the defensive side of things with their secondary. But I still think in general, like, this offense has some issues. The offensive line has not been as dominant as what they have been the past few years. And because of that, it sometimes can affect the ground game, and it also can affect Jared Goff and his processing. Like, I do think the Lions will struggle with teams that have dominant interior defensive lines, and teams that can, make pressure up the middle and make life difficult in the ground game and make life difficult for Jared Goff. Like, they will struggle with those a bit, but I think they still have the playmakers, and defensively, if they can get healthy in the back end, I think they do have the personnel back there to be competent. You throw in an Aiden Hutchinson, you throw in the star power. I do think the Lions have what it takes to get there. I just right now can't put them in my favorites because they haven't been consistent all year, right? It's been very up and down and up and down. And I like to value consistency and dominant play over a consistent stretch. Plus, they haven't really beat a super dominant football team. This week versus the Packers, they have a chance, though, to get a nice win versus a really good opponent. And if they can get the win here, then we might be having a different conversation about the Lions. So we'll have to wait and see. Next up, let's talk about the New England Patriots. So I don't think I'm going to put the Patriots ever, at least this year, in the favorites category, just because I just can't see a second-year quarterback in Drake May, even though he might be the front runner for MVP, like he's having a sensational season. It's just hard for me to sit here and tell you guys, yeah, the Patriots are going to go into the playoffs. They're going to have a bye. They're going to beat the Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, whoever it might be, and make it to a Super Bowl. Like, I just can't see it right now. Not that they're a bad team. They are an excellent football team. They are an excellent football team. And I don't even want to use the excuse of, oh, they haven't beat anybody good. They beat the Buffalo Bills soundly, and they beat a more healthy Baker Mayfield-led Buccaneers team. So that's all the proof I need to prove to me the Patriots are a very, very good football team. It's just they're a younger team. I have a hard time seeing this offensive line, especially now that Will Campbell is injured. That's going to be a bummer. I just can't see that unit standing up against some of the higher level competition in the AFC. Still, they might end up with the first round bye, and then you just need to win 2 games. So they got a chance. They're still in the mix. I just can't put them in my favorites yet, but I love them. I love them to death. They're playing super fun football. Next up, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. So every single team in this category is in no particular order, and that applies to every single category. So Patriots fans are like, we beat the Buffalo Bills. Why are they ahead of us? The order does not matter. But the Buffalo Bills are still in the conversation just for the simple fact that they have Josh Allen, who is an incredible player. Now, the team in general has not been playing great. In all honesty, they have not been playing great this year. They've had great moments, like that win versus Kansas City was a huge victory. But then they had the loss to the Patriots, they lost to the Miami Dolphins, then they lose to the Houston Texans this week. And, they've also kind of been in some ways kind of like the Detroit Lions in a lot of ways, where it's like, you got the playmakers, you got some dudes who can ball out, the defense has some players, but they're just not putting it all together and they're not finding that consistency. Now, the Bills, I think, do have more issues than the Detroit Lions. The Bills are fortunate to have a Josh Allen that can make up for some of the issues, but the receiving core in Buffalo is not great. They need more difference makers on the outside. Keon Coleman just has not been that. The ground game, when it's going, is really good, but they need to stick more with it. And now the offensive line is having some issues and some injuries, and the defense is not holding up their end of the deal. It's just been a weird year for Buffalo. I still think as long as they are the Buffalo Bills, as long as they have Josh Allen, they're going to have a chance in the playoffs, and that's why they're still in the mix. But they have shown flaws. I'll just put it that way. And we got to talk about the next team, none other than the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Indianapolis Colts had a really good opportunity to basically put a knife through the heart of all the Chiefs fans and basically say, you're done, right? You're out of the playoffs. I mean, it wouldn't have been out, but they would have been 5-6, and that's a tough ask to make the wild card. But they beat the Colts, and they're back in the mix. Look, Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. I know he's not been as great as he usually is with the deep ball accuracy, some of the decision making, etc., but he still is Mahomes. And when it comes down to it, if this team gets into the wild card, I just have a hard time saying they're going to lose in round 1 or 2 or 3. Like, they are just the Chiefs. They know how to find ways to win. Now, they have issues. The offensive line has not been great this year. The running game has not been good at all this year. They have some deficiencies with their passing game. Like, they have real offensive issues, but they have a top 10 caliber defense and an offense that, when it comes to crunch time, typically can make the plays to win the game. Now, that hasn't been the case for a lot of this year, but if that Colts game is any indicator of where they're at, they still have it in them. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, if you win out, or even if you lose like one more, you still got a decent chance of making the playoffs. And again, I have a hard time betting against this Chiefs team. The only thing I will say, if they do go on the wild card, they're going to have to go on the road. And right now, the Chiefs are 1-4 in away games. So look, I hope they don't win a Super Bowl this year. That's all I'm going to say. I hope they don't even make a playoff spot this year. I don't want to see the Chiefs anymore. But as long as they have Mahomes, as long as they have those guys, they're going to be in the conversation. All right, but let's go ahead and move over now to the favorites. And again, I have 5 teams in this favorites category. And again, no particular order. Let us begin with the Philadelphia Eagles. So Philadelphia's coming off a loss versus the Dallas Cowboys. I don't mean to flex, just, feeling pretty good about it as a Cowboys fan, as was in my predictions video. I did predict the Cowboys, so, pat on the back to your boy here. Anyways, don't mean to boast or anything like that. And just, a little bit happy about it. Look, the Eagles lost. They're 8-3. The defense is still incredible. They got to figure out that offense. Like, they have to figure it out. The offense is just way too hit and miss, where it's either a touchdown drive or it's a 3-and-out. It feels like there is no in between for this team, and that is a bad place to be, because right now the passing game has been inconsistent. The ground game is damn near non-existent, and defensively, yes, they can make stops, but this is not the same defense they were last year, right? Last year, this was a top 3 defense, maybe the best defense in football. They're not the best unit in football this year. They're a top 10 unit. They have a ton of playmakers. The young guys are playing very well, but they can only hold up for so long. This offense has to play better, or else they're not going to make it very far in the playoffs. I'm just going to tell you how it is. With that all said, they have won a Super Bowl before. They have shown the ability to run the football. They have the pieces necessary to make a deep playoff run, but will they? Can they? I don't know. They're 8-3, and they have been in a ton of really close games. And, if they lose to that Rams team, which, let's be honest, the Rams probably should have won that game, they're 7-4, and some of these other matchups have been quite close, but they've just been able to find a way. We'll see, man. This team does not feel like their 2024 self. They feel much more like the 2023 Eagles, but better, a lot better than the 2023 Eagles. But they feel more like that team than last year's team. So we'll see. Maybe they can put it together in the playoffs, but I don't know, man. It hasn't looked as great as I thought it was going to. Next up, let's talk about the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, man, their defense, I came into the year hyping up and glazing this defense to no end, but even myself, I didn't think this defense would be this good. They are by far and away the best or the second best, depending on who you have more, Houston's defense or Denver's defense. I would probably bank on Denver's defense, but Houston's is incredible as well. Denver's defense has been insane this year. It has been awesome. And their defense is some games single-handedly winning the games for them. But the offense has the ability to score points. They have been inconsistent as hell this year, and they could be quiet for 2.5, 3 quarters and then wake up and score 30 in the fourth. Like, they've done that this year. The offense has shown the ability, though, to put things together. Like we saw it versus the Chiefs, where the defense was playing incredible and they just needed the offense to do enough, and the offense was able to do enough. So that's kind of the pathway for the Broncos. The defense has to play well, and the offense just has to do enough. Can they score 3 more points than their opponent? And as long as they keep doing that, they're going to win a lot of games. They're also in second place in the entire AFC, and if the Patriots lose a game or 2 and Denver keeps winning, they could end up with the first round bye and potentially home field advantage in one of the best home field places ever in Mile High, where you're playing in a super high up place. I don't know, the altitude is crazy there, and teams have to breathe through this and that. Like, that's going to give them an advantage. And if you're the Denver Broncos, you want to play at home because that gives you an extra little bit of confidence and advantage, and you got the home crowd behind you. So if I'm the Broncos, I definitely have a chance. We have an incredible defense, and we have an offense that can do enough. And that's really the important thing. So I have faith in this team. I think they're really freaking good. Next up, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts were riding this super high wave, and it looked like they were just going to cruise to a #1 seed and potentially a deep playoff run. But they faltered a little bit, right? They had the Steelers game where the defensive line for Pittsburgh just dominated the Colts offensive line. They could not run the ball. Daniel Jones was uncomfortable, got sacked multiple times. And then this past week, a game versus Kansas City, they're up 20-9. And then the offense just went down the dumps, and the defense gave up almost 500 yards to the Chiefs. and they lost in overtime. So I don't really know what to do with this Colts team. I still look at this team and I say they have the pieces to be very good. Right? Daniel Jones, when he's given time, when he's given a clean pocket, is a good enough quarterback. He has so many playmakers on the outside. The offensive line, when they're healthy and when they're playing at their best, is a good unit. And Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in football. Defensively speaking, they have names, right? They have guys, Cameron Bynum, Kenny Moore, Sauce, Travarius Ward, Laiatu Latu. Like, they have dudes who can go. They just got to play better. Like, I just think that's the best way to talk about it. They got to be schemed up better. They got to make plays in open space. They got to create some turnovers. Like, they have to just play a lot better defensively. I think the biggest thing for Indianapolis, will they be able to run the football versus high-level competition come playoff time? Because I think that's really the path for the Colts. If Jonathan Taylor can go off and have 100 yards games in the playoffs, I feel great about Indianapolis. But if they can't, that's tough. Like, I think a matchup between Indianapolis and Denver is a tough matchup for the Colts, because that defense for Denver will give Daniel Jones some real issues. Now, I know we've already seen that matchup, but it was way earlier in the season, and we saw in that game, Denver gave some issues to Indianapolis. I think if those two teams played now, it would be a totally different ball game, and who knows who wins that one. But the good news for the Colts, the AFC isn't like incredible this year, right? If Kansas City loses one or two more games, then they're probably out of the mix. And you're looking at the rest of the AFC, like you got New England. I think they're beatable. They're a good team, but I think they are beatable. You got Denver. They're beatable too. You got Baltimore, the Chargers, the Jaguars, the Texans might be in there. Some very beatable football teams. Still, can you run the football versus high-level competition? That's going to be the key for them. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are a fun-ass football team to watch, because when this offense is clicking, man, they can just throw teams out of the water, because they have one of the best defenses in football. And offensively speaking, when they're clicking, it's fun as hell to watch. The question for the Seahawks is really just going to be, can Sam Darnold survive the playoffs? Because I think we're starting to see the flaws of Sam's game in terms of, if there is internal pressure, he struggles like mightily. And when you go up against the likes of the LA Rams or the Philadelphia Eagles, or a team like, I guess, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys made the playoffs with Quinnen Williams, like teams that have those dominant interior presences could just really get after the interior offensive line of Seattle and then make Sam Darnold uncomfortable. I mean, we saw in that Rams game, he threw 4 interceptions. Now, still, the Seahawks are so good on both sides of the football that they almost still won that game. They only lost that game because of a field goal, but they still could have won. So I still feel very confident about Seattle. But if you can get that internal pressure and make Darnold uncomfortable, the ghosts start to pop up a little bit for Darnold. Now, the good news for that Seahawks team, they're stacked with talent. Jackson Smith-Njigba is having one of the best years, not only of his career, but of a receiver in Seattle's history. And their defense is remarkably good. They're also very well coached. And I don't think Darnold is going to have a 4 interception game in the playoffs. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. But we have seen Darnold at times kind of self-destruct at times in moments where it's big time, like last year with Minnesota, towards the back end of the year, as that offensive line crumbled a little bit, his play dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. Is that going to happen this year? So far, it really hasn't been the case. We'll see, though. I still love the Seahawks team. I still think they totally have what it takes. But Darnold, to me, is going to be the key on this one. If Darnold plays good in the entire playoffs, they have a chance. But if Darnold kind of falters a little bit, then I don't feel as confident. And lastly, our last favorite is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. So I saved the Rams on purpose for last, because I do think the Rams, as of today, would be my favorite to win the Super Bowl. Like, my #1 favorite. You look at their 2 losses, like their 1 loss to San Francisco to me is like their only real clean loss. Like, and even in that game, they made up for it by beating the 49ers just a few weeks afterwards. So they made up for that loss. But the game against the Philadelphia Eagles, like, they probably should have won that game, right? Let's just be honest. They were up big and they let go of the rope, and they had a chance to win it late with a field goal, and it got blocked and returned for a touchdown. So if they kick the field goal and make that kick, they're 10-1, and they also have a win, by the way, over the Indianapolis Colts. Now, yes, the Colts game has a bit of a caveat because of Adonai Mitchell, but still, they still won that game. Regardless, though, they are currently the top team in the NFC. They're on top of their division, a division in which is super stacked. They have San Francisco and they have Seattle within that division. And shoot, they might have the most fun offense in football in the Arizona Cardinals that has Jacoby Brissett just tossing the rock 50 times. Like, it's been so much fun to watch them play football lately. But LA is like, they're kicking ass, man. This defense is incredible. They have one of the best pass rushing units out there. The secondary has found these hidden gems, like Emmanuel Forbes is out there making plays, which is awesome to see for his career. Like, we were calling him one of the biggest busts ever. Now he's actually a legit starter for LA. And we know what this offense has. Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, a good enough offensive line, and a quarterback that is the MVP frontrunner for a good reason. He's balling the hell out. You throw in the fact that they have that championship experience, they have a championship caliber head coach, and you just don't really see too many big issues for this team. And again, I'm going to say it again, you look at the NFC and it's like, okay, does Philadelphia scare me right now? Not really, because Philadelphia beat the Rams last year because they could run the ball down their throat. This year, the Eagles can't run the football to save their life. Tampa Bay has injuries. Chicago doesn't, I'm not worried about Chicago. The Lions, the Packers, they're not as scary as maybe what they have been in years past. In Seattle, we just beat the Seahawks, and we are going to play them again later in the season, so we're going to have plenty of tape on them. So if I'm the Rams, I feel really confident that we have a legit chance to win the entire NFC, and right now, I like them over every team in the AFC as well. So I think the Rams are in a great position. They're not too banged up right now. If they can get a bit more healthy and keep the guys upright, like, they're going to be fine. And they're one of the best teams in football. Defensively, they're balling the hell out, and offensively, they're balling the hell out too. And they're going up against high-level competition as well, so they're not just cruising against bad football teams. Cough, cough, the Chicago Bears. Hence why they're not in the video. But yeah, LA's playing great, and they're my number one for a reason. So you guys let me know in the comment section below, what did I miss? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed, hit that like and subscribe button. I love you guys. Peace.